There's a new power struggle in the White House. New reports suggest Jared Kushner is putting up a fight regarding retaining his security clearance. That gives him access to classified information. Kushner reportedly one of the dozens of White House staffers operating under interim security clearances. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly said he'd revoke clearances for any staffer whose background check has been pending since June 1st or earlier. In a statement, Kelly declined to comment on Kushner's security clearance, but said he has, quote, full confidence in Jared's ability to continue performing his duties. So who comes out on top in a battle between the president's son-in-law and his chief of staff? That could get sticky. Let me ask Buck Sexton, former CIA officer and host of the nationally syndicated Buck Sexton show. So this is really interesting. What a strange dynamic. Why is it taking so long for Jared Kushner's security clearance? Why does he still have interim clearance?
The positive way of looking at it would be that somebody who has a lot of international travel connections and particularly business connections is going to take longer to investigate than some guy who grew up in Montana, never left the state, and now has joined the government in some capacity, right? So it's just a question of what the resources are. That's the positive way to look at it. The other way, and we don't know without seeing the file, is that there could be some red flags that don't necessarily mean he won't get a clearance, but as somebody who went through the process, knows how adjudication of a clearance works, there are some areas where they go, well, we need to talk about this, meaning the people that are actually involved in the investigation process.
So walk us through that process. What is the process like?
Well, they're a little tight-lipped about it because it involves different branches of the federal government, and it also involves a lot of raw information that comes in from all different kinds of folks, including, as we have seen, ex-wives, former girlfriends, former boyfriends, people that lived with you in college.
Yeah,
you can
Rob
imagine
Porter
how
also didn't have security clearance, and some of those past interviews with FBI agents obviously proved not only problematic, but he lost his job because he was apparently beating his wives.
Yeah, it's been a bad month for government competence. I think we could say that across the board, and that's not surprising, though, right? So in the security clearance process, you're talking about a huge number of people that have clearances, that are trying to get clearances, and it's
Would Jared Kushner have the highest level security clearance?
I would assume so, although, again, they don't necessarily tell us that. If he's going to be handling anything like the PDB, for example, yes, he would have to have a very high security clearance. I think in terms of the power dynamic between these two right now, one thing that's been left out of the discussions about Kelly is that in his statement he said, you know, we're going to pull all the clearances if you don't have it by the state.
What does that mean? Read between the lines for us.
But the line that was between is, unless I say it's like really important the person keeps their clearance. Yeah. Let me cut to the chase here.
Is there a rift there between Kelly and Kushner?
I think there is, but I think also Kelly is going to make that special exception that he left himself as an out if need be for Kushner. Kushner is obviously in that really triumvirate with Ivanka, Kushner, and the President of the United States.
Does Kelly know what's holding up the clearance?
He probably would know if he cared to know, but I think in this process right now, it may be just a function of Kelly wants to say, look, if you want to play chicken over power in the White House, we can do this. Like, we can go all day and see who's going to be. Because at the end of the day, I think Kelly's willing to lose this job or leave this job if it comes down to it.
Okay, but let me ask you, does Jared Kushner want John Kelly out of that role? Because obviously he has limited access for pretty much everyone to the president, including his family members. So are you hearing that something from inside that Kushner wants John Kelly out of the chief of staff
From
job?
the people that I talked to about the White House, it seems to them and to me, I think it's a fair estimation, that there is a struggle about who will be the alpha, if you will, between who will be the top dog between Kelly and Kushner. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one wants the other to be gone. Keep in mind, there's already been quite a house cleaning of the White House, of a whole bunch of folks that Ivanka and Jared, based on the reporting and also based on what I've heard, didn't really want to have hanging around. So right now it might just be if Kelly grants this essentially loophole, or if he gives a get out of
dispensation?
Exactly, a dispensation on the clearance issue. You know, maybe it's a come together moment with him and Jared. But it would be, this whole thing to me seems to be a way of Kelly saying, one, all the critics about the Rob Porter thing that were piling on me, they need to watch themselves, because it wasn't just me. There were others that could have done something, were involved. And also, if you guys want to pile on me, you know, we can do this, and I'll go all day.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I think that was his direct quote.
I think it's a come at me, bro moment for a former 3-star Marine general. So I wouldn't want to come at him personally.
Buck Sexton, well done.
That's how I roll.
That's right.
Good to see you.
Very good to see you too.